I was going to say I was going to go get my cord, but we are on. But I have 94%, so I'm going to. I don't
take the gamble.
to test the energy universe gods and hope that my battery won't die. It says, well, now it says 93%.
You better go. You're going to be stressing and watching that.
Get down to 10%. I'll be like, ah.
Oh right, my God, go get it.
Go get it.
All right.
Robin will be right back.
While you're waiting for me.
So, anyway, we're glad you're here. We're excited to join you guys on this happy Friday for Facebook Live. So just put in the chat if you can hear us and see us and how your Friday's going. So we'd love to hear from you. And sometimes our app doesn't post things, so I'm going to go see if I can see it on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
Did a new app thing this week, so.
I'm back. What kind of app thing?
Well, it looks different. It has a different little icon.
Well, Facebook looks different anyway. I opted for the dark screen.
Oh, okay.
It looks really different anyway. So.
Is that a choice? I haven't even seen that choice.
Yeah, it is a choice. You can go with the light screen or the dark screen. And I love the dark screen on my phone. So it's just easier on the eyes. And so I did it on my desktop and on Facebook. I've never had it on Facebook before, but anyway, it's a little different.
Well, Robin, it's a good thing you came back because I can't even find our live feed on my phone.
It's the very top thing on our page. I just pulled our page up and it's the very top thing.
Well, I'm on my phone.
Well, technology and Susan. I don't know.
Exactly. We're a dangerous combo. But anyway.
Well, I will say hello to everyone who's joining us. If you are here, let us know that you're here by leaving a comment in the comment section. We have a really, really exciting session today. And it's a question that Susan and I get all the time. And so we're like, Lori, come and help us. So we'll introduce Lori in a second. But if you're here, just leave us a comment. And so we know that you're out there. And so we know that all the technology is working on our end as well. So anyway.
Are you hearing from anybody? Because our app's not showing anybody out there, which is kind of sad.
On mine it is.
Okay, good.
Yeah, but nobody's commenting.
Oh, here it is. Okay. Yeah,
David is here. Oh, there, Jessica's here. Okay, so the technology, at least on my end, I can see that. So that's always good.
Yeah, I'm seeing it now too. I feel better. So
yeah. Right. Yeah. So even if it's recorded, we have lots of good information to share, and
we have amazing information. So. Well, I will kick it off now that for those of you that were listening to all our technology questions, and all starting with I had to go get my plug from my computer. So this is just how we roll here. This is unscripted.
That's right.
Anyway, okay, a couple of housekeeping items. Number one, I'm gonna put this link in now because I always save it to the end, and I don't know why I always save it to the end, because then I feel like I don't have it. So I'm gonna say it at the beginning and the end. So if you think there's other people that you know that would be interested in learning about commission structures and all of the stuff Lori's going to be talking about, then feel free to share this Facebook Live with them, either now or if you're watching it on the recording, you can share it then as well. And then we always continue discussions on our Facebook group. So I just put the link to our Grow Your Facebook group in there. So you're welcome to join us, not now because we're not there, but later. Join us later. Just click on the join button where everybody's welcome on that page. Our only 2 rules are you have to be nice and you can't sell stuff. So it's a great community of folks that are there to help each other. And the Dog Gurus team is there answering questions. But there are so many great business owners out there. We have lots of people that will weigh in and help answer questions. So join us there as well. So kicking off today, I'm just going to introduce Lori Davis. And Lori is the owner of Paramount Success Group, and I'm going to just have Lori. I think usually we just assume everybody knows you, but I decided we should probably have you introduce your business and talk a little bit about that. And then Susan, if you want to kick off with kind of our first topic for the day. But Lori, I'm going to throw it over to you. I will say Lori is a dear friend of ours, so we sometimes get off tangent on totally different things. We'll try not to do that today. But for those of you that know the Dog Gurus and know when we are recommending vendors, many of the times that we're recommending them, these vendors have become our friends. It's part of why we recommend them, because they share our values, they share our goals, they share our mission of the Dog Gurus, and they're super nice people, and they do a really good job. So you see that across the board on the vendors that you hear from us. And I don't say that lightly, because Susan and we get asked all the time to promote products, recommend things, whatever. A lot. I can't even tell you how many times we get asked, and we don't do that unless we really believe in the product or the service, and we really believe in the company and the people behind the company. And that's definitely the case with Lori. So anyway, okay, I'll stop talking and let Lori introduce herself.
Thank you very much. And you know, I am the same way. I'm very hesitant to recommend any I don't know if I'm getting feedback from my phone, so I'm going to turn that off. I'm very hesitant to recommend any other service, because it can come back to bite you if it doesn't go well for whoever you recommend it to. And I always recommend Robin and Susan. And yes, I recommend you because I love you both. You're awesome people, but I also know that what you provide is quality, and you know, where you all leave off, I pick up, and vice versa. And so when I work with people, I need to know that they have similar values, and I'm not just saying you guys, because you do, but when I take on a client and I'm going to help promote a business and help them sell their services, and I need to know that they're taking great care of pets, and that they're aligned. And so I send everyone to the Dog Gurus. I have to have that peace of mind, that especially that they're training their people to take great care of pets. So plus everything else you guys offer. So I'm Lori Davis, and I have Paramount Success Group, which is a company I started to bring pet care facility owners together who can collaborate. And the basis of it is that we provide virtual sales management, training management, ongoing coaching to reservation specialists, front desk team members. So it's sales and customer service and communication, basically, across every channel. We had so many of our clients ask us finally, can't you just take our calls for us? So reluctantly, we started a company called My Reservation People, which is now in its 3rd+ year. And we have a team of reservation specialists. Because of COVID, we are pivoting a little bit. In the past, you know, you might have had to fit into our mold in order to work with My Reservation People. And I'm excited to say that we are making some changes to be able to help a larger audience. So, because there are a lot of people out there who can really use this, and we know it makes such a difference in the business. So anyway, that's I love this industry. I love what I do, and I love hearing from all of the Dog Gurus members and followers, and love helping out whenever I can. So
awesome. Well, and so with that, Susan, do you want to kick our conversation off? Because what we asked Lori to come here and talk about was really commission structures. How do you figure out if you're going to do a commission? How can that help you? We hear from a lot of people who started with a commission and then they're like, we're not making any money, we're giving it all away on commissions, so they stop. And so where do you want to start, Susan? I'll let you kick that off.
Well, I think I always like to kind of start with the big picture. So Lori, when you're working with clients and you do a lot with sales, of course, and front desk, where we often think of commission programs, but I like to think of incentive pay.
Yes.
As being open to incentive pay wherever it makes sense in your organization.
Right.
So if we look at it from that big picture, how do you kind of address setting up incentive pay plans in a pet business? What's kind of some of your guides?
So I look at what behaviors are we trying to shape, and what are we trying to achieve? There are lots of ways to incent people to do what you want them to do. And I wish we could say, well, you should just do it because it's your job and we're paying you an hourly wage. But
we do say that. There's lots of people that do say that.
Well, I know.
Is it very effective? Let's just point that out. It's not very
realistic, because you can't just hire someone, train them, and then you're done. And so it's an ongoing process. That's why we coach reservation specialists on a weekly basis, because you can't just think, okay, we've trained them and they're done and they're just going to keep performing the way that we want them to. They're not. They have things going on in their lives. They get interested in other things, and things can become humdrum. And so you have to think of ways to keep your team. I don't care whether they mop accommodations or whether they greet people at the front desk, or manage the entire facility. You have to do things to keep your team motivated. And so that's where a great commission structure or bonus plan, is what I like to call it, comes into play. And it doesn't have to be scary, and you can do it with the money that you have right now, which may not be a lot, but you explain that. So that's how I look at it, is let's make a list of all of the behaviors that we need to see and that we know we need to continuously revisit. And that's the starting point for creating an incentive structure.
So I think when most people think of commissions, it's always like, what percent? The question that I always get is, what percent should I give? What percent of commission should I give? Should it be 20%, 50%, 70%? And before we got on this call, we were talking a little bit about the point system that you talk about. And then Susan was also talking about, or maybe it was you, I don't remember. We were talking earlier about that bucket. So can you go that way? Because I think that's a totally different way of looking at commissions that make it a lot more doable. And the other downside of commissions, when I've talked to people, is that many times they are giving away too much.
Yes.
So that they're actually losing money,
right.
Or at least not making the right amount by doing a commission structure that isn't really thought through all the way. So can you talk about that kind of bucket?
Yes. This is my favorite bonus structure, and I think I feel like I have evolved as far as this bonus structure comes into play, because we do oftentimes feel like once you get to, well, we're just paying them a percentage of, if it's a reservation specialist or someone at the front desk, you're paying a percentage of what they sell. And that isn't always, that too becomes kind of humdrum, and they kind of just start counting on it, because we know that existing clients come back and they do the same thing every single time. There's not really an incentive to try and introduce new products to them, because they just know they're kind of comfortable, and they get comfortable with that same amount. So what we have done over the past couple of years is transition to a point system. So you say you have $5,000 annually that you want to set aside for a bonus structure. And then you break it down into, here are 10 behaviors that I want to see. So say say it's take the front desk. You can do customer complaints. So how many customer complaints do you receive in a month? If you don't receive any, then it's a full point. If you receive, you can come up with a range, but You can make it as simple as if you receive one, then they don't get the point. So if you have if you don't want it to be customer complaints, maybe it's bad reviews. If you receive one negative review, then they don't get that point. If you convert, say you have a certain percentage of all checkouts need to have a bathing service, whether it's a bath, a nail trim, teeth brushing, whatever it is, come up with that percentage. And I like to say 50%. A lot of the reservation specialists sell way over that now, but I like to say 50% of the dogs checking out would have a bathing service. And so if they reach that goal, they get a point. And this can be individual or this can be team. So it's really whatever behavior you're trying to shape, then that's how you create that point system.
So then if you have 10 points, if they get 10 points, then all of that pot of money goes to the person or to the team. Is that how you would do it?
So if you took $5,000 was your annual bonus amount, you would divide that by 12. So you would know on a monthly basis how much is in the pot for each month. And that then you take it down even further. So each point is worth a certain dollar amount.
Okay.
So if you were setting up, say if you were setting up for a pet care team, you didn't want to see any pet incidences. You didn't want to see any human incidences where people have to go to the doctor because they were bitten or whatever. I mean, we know that there are precautions that can be put into place, and I know this from you guys, to prevent those types of things from happening. And so if I love it, thinking about doing this with the pet care team, because it allows them to kind of police and motivate each other. So the team wants to get that certain amount. They want to get that point so that they get that extra little bump in their paychecks.
Well, and I like that too, because now that's interesting, because I've always thought of commissions as like the selling something, but here you're tying it into not just the front of the house people who actually are on the phone talking, but you're tying it into the actual work that the back of the house is doing with the dogs. And I love that, because that should be simple to keep the dogs safe and not have incidents.
Right.
If you're following, if you're taking in the right dogs and you're training your staff, that should be really easy to do.
Right.
So you get those points every time, hopefully.
Yeah.
That's
and
great.
then, I don't want to get ahead, but, for different team members, there are different goals. So a manager would have a very different incentive structure from other people, but maybe the manager is bonused on a certain percentage of increase in revenue year over year. They're also bonused on the customer complaints, on the incidences, whether they did, ongoing regular meetings with the team, anything that you're wanting to motivate this person to do. And it can also change. Doesn't always have to be the same. So it depends on what your goals are.
Yeah, I think that is really important to tie in your incentive plans to your company goals and results that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Because people need to feel like they're working towards something. And I think what I think is also important is whatever behaviors you set out for your team member is to make sure that they have control and can achieve it.
Yes.
Because I think you can do a lot of damage if they feel like this is out of my control, so I just give up.
Right. Absolutely. You want to, it takes outlining what's expected of them very clearly, and then it takes tracking it. I mean, like we said, Susan, it has to be measurable.
Right.
But just because it's measurable, you have to figure out the right way to track it. And is it subjective? Is it something that you're going to allow the team member to track for themselves that you can verify, Or is it something that's in your system that maybe you have a spreadsheet that you're tracking it? How are you going to go about tracking it? Because that's very important. Because especially if somebody's being paid an incentive, they're going to want to see how you came up with it. So it's something that you've got to be very transparent about and share.
So talking about, I'm just gonna give you my negative aspect, like talking about the team thing. And I said this was my first question when we were talking about it earlier. And I think this comes from, like, we all remember being in high school and having group projects. And I felt like, I was doing all the work, So my question is, with the team thing, and you kind of alluded to it. So I just want you to expand on how this does actually work. Because my first thought was, I love the team concept, but then how do you present? And I know, I guarantee you there's people listening that are thinking the same thing.
I'm sure.
How do you make sure that it's the whole team and not just one person carrying the weight? And I think the way that you talked about a minute ago, where everybody really does have a role, definitely helps. But what have you seen? Like, is that a concern when people start with that type of a model? And are they worried that, did they get complaints that one person who's like the group project high school where I did all the work and then everybody got an A? How do you avoid that?
It doesn't take long for your superstars to rise to the top, and for that one person who's just kind of gliding by, it magnifies. If you have an issue in the department, it's going to stand out, because if all those other people, and I don't know if you heard me say, you were a Marine, like I think this is how you guys were trained.
Exactly. That's exactly how we were.
Yeah. So you hope that the team members will coach each other and lift each other up, and I think that's a great way to introduce it when you say, "Here's our team goal," because take a dog incident. It may not be just one person's fault. So it's really difficult to say, we had a pet related incident this month, and it could have caused a bad review. It could have caused a big loss in revenue, because we had to pay out some major vet bills. I mean, it cost us a lot, but can we truly just identify that one person who was responsible for it? We really can't, because maybe you can identify the person who was watching the dogs at that given time, but it goes also back to, well, was that person provided the training that they really needed?
Right.
Were they being managed the way that they needed to be managed?
And was the dog appropriate to be there in the first place?
Exactly. Were they set up for success in the first place? So it really is a team type of approach, because that's the only way that's really how it works. So that way you hope that if these things are happening, anytime there's any kind of complaint, incident, whatever, people will ask me to write a response to a negative review for them. And oftentimes they'll just send me the review and say, hey, can you write a response for this? And then I think it doesn't happen that often, so they don't remember that I'm going to send back this list of questions. I want to see all the notes from the client file. So it's not just this one and done thing. And there's always something to learn from it. Like, I don't stop with just writing the review. I look at, is this a pattern? Like, we have to learn from this, and what are we going to do about it? So there's a lot that is encompassed with providing this type of incentive structure to the people who are caring for pets, and even people who are caring for clients. So,
well, and what I see, what you would have to be prepared to, this would be a great way to get team members engaged in improving your operations.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you have to have that structure in place to say, okay, we had a failure where we lost points. What is the root cause? How do we work together so that you don't lose points in the future? And as a leadership team, you've got to be ready to take action and improve your systems.
Right. Right.
So I would say, if you've got shaky systems and people aren't able to be responsible and achievable, you may want to wait on the incentive until you get there.
Right. Right. Yeah. Until you can can say, I have set this team up for success.
Right.
They know what's expected of them. And only then can you really hold them accountable. So as an owner and as a manager, you have to look within first.
And I think I love that analogy you talked about with being a Marine, because I can remember that is exactly how the Marine Corps works. I can remember as a Marine Corps officer going to a leadership training program. So we all think, normally that means you all get in a room, in a boardroom, and have a conversation. That's not how the Marines do it. We went out to an obstacle course, and we were presented with a whole bunch of obstacles where you had to get from point A to point B, and you only had certain logs or straps or whatever. You had like a pile of crap you could use, and then you couldn't like touch certain areas. I mean, you couldn't put your feet on the ground. It was all this crazy stuff. And you had to work as a team to get through it. And it's that same thing. It's so everybody comes together, like Susan was just saying, to say, all right, how are we going to do this? And sometimes the people who are different from you, who maybe on your team get a bad rap, sometimes they come up with some really creative, they have totally different strengths. And then doing a team exercise like that, where everybody does have to work together. Yeah, sure. You definitely can find the people that maybe shouldn't be on your team at all. But what we saw most of the time was that you saw people bring out strengths that you had no idea were there. And so I think that's a really cool way of doing it. So it's a totally new way of looking at that whole incentive process that can really help your company.
Awesome. I love coming up with something new.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think you do see that people rise to the occasion, that it was unexpected, and I love it that I would love for teams to get to go and do things like that. Even it's all about building this cohesive team,
right,
and feeling responsible as a member of that team.
So we've talked a lot about team rewards. When do you recommend it kind of be like an individual performance award? In what situations do you see that works well?
So when I see when we use that is generally with reservation specialists, the person who's responsible for bringing in your revenue, for bringing in the business, and getting people in with the services, the additional services that we know are important for the pet and for your revenue. That's when you want to come up with a certain criteria. So you want to say 75% conversion ratio, all new clients. That I will say that's a little bit different right now, because people are making their reservations much closer to the time that they're going to go, because they're always on the fence of whether they're going somewhere. But with daycare, a new daycare client, you should be booking, I would say, over 90% of, if someone calls you for daycare, you should be able to get them in the building, for the evaluation. So that's, but for lodging, it should be a little bit lower. I would say 75%. And then for lodging, I would say 50% of the reservations that the person makes should have a bathing or grooming service. And that just means they ask them, they promote it. I have a training module on why that's so important. And to me, it's important for the dog. It's important for the business revenue wise, but it's also, I want people to consider it part of their marketing, because when you send a dog home smelling great, that's the last memory a pet parent has of their time with you. If you send them home smelling crappy, that's what they're going to remember.
That's so true. That is so true.
So, and scent is like the closest scent, closest sense related to memory. And I always mess that up, but I'm a huge believer in that. It makes a huge difference on whether that new client's going to come back or not. So, but I have for a reservation specialist, I want them to send me their tracking sheet every Friday. That's a point, because that says they're taking it seriously, they're filling it out correctly, and they're going to send it to me every Friday. I want them to make their coaching calls a priority. So do they attend their coaching calls? That's a point. That's worth $40 if that's what that amounts to on your point system. You know, and then whatever your priorities are, and like I said, they could change. If you have a certain revenue per pet per night that you don't want them to go below, then that's worth 1 or 2 points. You know, if you have 3 levels of services, you know, you want them, we always say the top 20%, you know, of your clients are your top spenders. And so all of your reservations should, I mean, the 20% of your reservations should be at your top level services, 40 to 60%. And then we hope for less than 10 to 20% at the lowest level. So
yeah, those are great goals to look at just from, and if you don't have tiered services, it's definitely something to look at. And that we talked about that. I don't even remember where, but on some session, we talked about that once, probably with the last session we did with you, Lori, where if you don't have additional services, you are missing out, because I think a lot of times we price things based on what we would pay for it. And we may not be the average pet parent who comes to your facility, or we might not be the 20%. So there's always that 20% who will pay higher than what your average package is. If you only have one package, you're probably missing an opportunity.
absolutely, because the only way, if you only have one thing to offer, the only way you can increase revenue over time is to raise your rates. Well, why not offer several different options? Because there's a group of pet parents out there who will do whatever you put in front of them because they don't want to feel guilty leaving their dog. They want their dog to stay busy and not miss them while they're away. So plus they trust you. If you're shaping the conversation correctly, they'll trust you as the expert. And so there's a lot of revenue left on the table if you're only offering one option.
Yeah, that's a great point.
All right, so we talked about individual for reservation specialist. You talked about managers. Do you usually see that done incentive pay as a team or as an individual?
I see that as an individual, and that one is really based on. We've done several different types of manager incentives. It's you know, if you're developing a manager and you have goals set for them that you want to see them accomplish, that's a great way to, it doesn't always have to be revenue related or whatever. You know, just like I said, we want reservation specialists to take their coaching calls and their tracking seriously. So we put it on the incentive structure. Same thing goes for managers. If managers say, I don't have time to have meetings with my team, I meet with them, you know, and it's kind of a fly by the seat of a pants approach. If you're serious about wanting them to have meetings and have lunch and learns and make sure that continuous training is going on, make it a part of their incentive structure. And if it doesn't happen, they don't get that portion of the bonus. They don't get that point.
Well, and we hear a lot, like, they've delegated to managers to get the Knowing Dogs or Pet Guru College training done, and for new hires to, you know, get trained in a timely manner. And managers say, I don't have time. If they had a point,
they would make one.
And you could even have a point attached to the new person. So both sides have an incentive to get serious to get their training done.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I could see where that could really incent versus having to stick and give coaching.
Well, it's kind of like you all talk about training a dog.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So are you going to penalize them or are you going to reward them? And rewards take you a lot farther. And and for the little bit of money that it really is, you're going to watch your numbers grow because everything, people are being held accountable, and everything's going to run much more smoothly because you have set people up for success. You've let them know what you expect of them. You're holding them accountable, and the people that don't perform, you're going to be able to see it right there in front of you. It's all in the point.
Yeah, and I think you have to be prepared to get them off the team if you can't coach them to better performance, because over time, if you let them, kind of like Robin said, tag along, that's going to discourage your rock star A-team players, and they're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely.
If those people are dragging them down.
Those rock stars are going to demand that you get that person off the team. And you have to listen to that. You know, if you're hearing from 3 or 4 people that this is not a good fit, take it to heart, because they have to work with this person every day, and there is something going on. There is something wrong.
And if you got the tracking, then you have the data, which makes doing the performance coaching and coaching them out so much easier. So
it does.
That's really great. So we talked a little bit about pet care team. Do we have any questions, Robin?
We have no questions. So if you guys have any questions on anything as we're talking, it's the most quiet group ever.
I know.
There's one more thing I want to add. People do contests, and contests are one of the most difficult things to get employees engaged in. I have tried it over all these years that I have worked in the pet industry. Sometimes they work, sometimes they flop. I think there are 2 things about having a contest that, say, at the front desk, you want you have a promotion for teeth brushing, or an oral health care month or something. The first thing is to not make your contest too long. So if it's for the entire month, I don't think I would run the contest for the whole month. I'd run the contest for a shorter period of time, maybe 2 weeks. Get people, because what contests are doing, you want to get people in the habit of doing this. So making it short, and then having more than one winner. So because there's always one person who may work more hours, they have no inhibition about promoting anything. And if you just have one winner, that person's always going to win. But if you say, if you sell 5 nail trims, you're going to get X. And every 5 nail trims, then they get that X, but they also get to put their name in a bowl for a drawing at the end of the contest. So you could have, everybody has the opportunity to win. And there still can be a big winner if you have this superstar whose name goes in there, 10 times. So
I love that, because I've seen those contests where if somebody's way far ahead, you get discouraged, and then they're like, I'm not going to win. Exactly. So I love that idea of there's like a smaller goal that's achievable multiple times.
Yes.
That lets you.
And the prize should be, say, if you're making it about nail trims, the prize should be about 10%, no more than 10% of the revenue that you will generate based on whatever they sold. So don't go overboard. You don't have to give them an Apple Watch.
But that would be very cool.
Yeah, but make it something that they want. Make it something that that they're interested in, and make it fun. And that was the other thing I was going to say is you have to make it fun. You have to keep talking about it. You can't just set the contest and then walk away and check back in at the end of 2 weeks.
Yeah,
you have to really keep people engaged in it.
That's awesome. All right, we do have a couple questions. So,
okay.
Aaron was asking, what's on your tracking sheet? The last word didn't come through there, but it actually says what's on your tracking sheet. So when you're working with those,
so it depends. But for a reservation specialist, we want to know all the phone calls that you take, and did that phone call turn into a reservation? That's yes or no. So that's your conversion ratio. You can also track whether the person created a new client file, because that's really, really important. Even if that person didn't book on the first phone call, you want to be able to get the name, the phone number, and the email address at least. Even better, get the physical address and some of the pet information. That's creating a new client file for your database, which we know you've paid the money to get that phone to ring. So let's make the most of that phone call. Even if they're not quite ready to book, let's at least get that in the database. And that's easy. I'll just say it right now. All you say to them is, we're so happy you called. Let me just learn a little bit about you and your pet, your first name and your last name. And you just make it really quick. You gather that information before they've even realized, why do I have to give all this information before I just get a price?
I love that. Well, and also contacts come from so many places nowadays. I mean, this is something that we went through like a year ago where we were like, people are Facebooking us, we're texting us, they're calling us. We have a customer support called Rhino Support. We get emails and call information in there. It's like all over the place. We had to finally say like, all right, we need to somehow get all of this into our actual CRM, because we did realize that not all of those were getting, we would reply to all of them, but not all of them were getting into our database.
Yeah. And that data is valuable.
Right.
It's really, really valuable. And so, and my recommendation for every new client is that follow it up with a phone call. There is nothing like talking to the person over the phone so that you can start to build trust. And that's what this business is all about. It's not about emailing your price list. It's about having that pet parent feel like you're getting to know their pet and their wishes, and you're going to help them learn more about your facility, the care you provide, and your services.
So a couple of other comments and questions. Karen said they have a commission tier structure for their groomer, which I do want to go back to groomers and trainers in a minute. More sales equals more commission. So we're going to talk about that in a second. TJ said, are there examples to view of these point-based tracking systems for dog care facilities? I don't know if you have any samples anywhere, Lori. Or
I am, because I think people need this. I am going to put a sample on the website, and I am working on being able to help more people through some recorded modules. And so this is one of them. This is so I'll send out an email when that's ready for everyone. So
that would be great, and we'll share that.
Yeah.
Karen also said we do contests for extra services by percentage of their sales and give gift cards. I will say one of the thing about gift cards that we have taken advantage of is if you guys have a credit card that does points, so ours are through Chase, we get like tons, because we pay just about everything on credit card, and then we pay the credit card off at the end of the month. We do very little other than that. We don't really write many checks for the dog gurus. So our credit card charges are pretty high, but we get tons of points that you can then turn into gift cards. So and then it's not really costing you anything. Those points add up. So that if you're giving out gift cards, I would definitely look at, an option where you can get those gift cards through your credit card purchases in terms of points. So it's really cool. That's a side note, but I was just thinking about that because we need to order some more, Susan.
Yeah, we do.
All right. So Jen said she's driving and listening, loving all these incentives, trying to tweak your ideas to fit our pet sitting and dog training teams. So do you have specific ideas that we can toss out for Jen in terms of pet sitting and dog training?
So definitely, I would love more information, more questions on the pet sitting. I think the pet sitting would fall into maybe that pet care team, and you could do it for each pet sitter. That would probably be individual. So it would be level of customer satisfaction. So you would measure that through a survey every time that pet sitter goes out. Customer, pet incidences,
Complete the reports, if they have report cards.
Yes. Whatever you are holding them accountable to do. So if they're supposed to give the pet parent feedback on a regular basis or a report card, that's a great way to ensure that those things are being carried out. With trainers, I have been working on this for a while. So if in a pet care facility, if you set up an evaluation for a trainer, the trainer has the expertise about what that dog needs as far as training goes. Sometimes if you're just selling a group training class or something like that, the reservation specialist can sell it. What I like to do is if it's you're going to bring the dog in for a training assessment, then we want to work with the trainer to let that trainer have to give that trainer the confidence of becoming the expert, because they are, but of coming across as the expert and making a recommendation, and then escorting that client over to the front desk and saying, here's what we've decided on for the pet. And so they are really responsible for converting that client into whatever package they have recommended.
Well, and I also think for trainers, and Robin has more experience than I do, but sometimes they are very focused on their goal of training the pet and the people. Mm-hmm. And so they finish the class and everybody celebrates, but there's not that recommendation of there's another step.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And doing an incentive to get more of those next step recommendations.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say a next step class, whether it's a private lesson or coming to the next level mm-hmm. class or whatever, or somehow they're coming back to your facility to do other services.
Take care.
Getting them. Yeah, now that you've done this, why don't you try this that we offer as well? Right. So it might not even be in the training realm. The other thing could be upselling, and we talked a little bit about this in terms of if you have a store, or even if you just have affiliate programs where you have an Amazon affiliate that sells a bundle of material to that new puppy owner or new dog owner or every time we had clients come to our training, we usually gave them the initial set of treats and a clicker and some, stuff to get them started. But then after that, we would sell those things to them. So right. You can have some based on upsells as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, a lot of people we know are using the Climb to train. And if you sell them a Climb and they have their new desert tan color that fits
exactly
the decor.
Yeah, yeah. And if you sell something, I swear, I don't know why, if you're doing training, you should be doing, this goes back to that whole, do a basic program, do a basic price. 20% of people are going, what else do you got?
Exactly.
But they aren't actually asking you that. They're saying that in your head. So just offer an additional package that's the same class with a Climb. And then they get the Climb. You make money off the Climb because you can sign up as a dealer and of the Climb product. And you can even have that drop shipped to them. But if they're coming to your class, I would just have them in your facility.
Do that, but also enroll them in daycare with training.
Right.
So it takes part of we all know pet parents are the worst about continuing on with the training once they get the dog home. And so,
I like how you raised your hand, Lori.
Yeah, I did. So offer them a daycare solution that includes some training 2 days a week. And so they're, you're going to keep up with it for them.
Yeah.
And here's the reason not to make this a commercial about the Climb, but I totally love the Climb, but, and I'll put a link to Blue 9 where you can get them. But here's the thing about the Climb, because I'm a trainer. So every trainer will tell you the worst part about training is compliance from the pet parent, as Lori just mentioned. Here's why I love the Climb, because if you're teaching the dog the Climb at your daycare or in your training facilities, and most of the training, a lot of the trainers I know now just use Climb because it helps to manage the class, because you teach the dog and the owner have the dog on the Climb. You have instant class management. There's no more, the other big group class problem is the owners who are like, I want my dog to play. You just tell them, get on the Climb. Somehow owners get that. But here's the other thing. The dog gets so reinforced for being on the Climb that when you send the Climb home with the parent, the parent puts it down, the dog immediately jumps up on it. And they're like, oh my gosh, look how trained my dog is. It's instant compliance. I love it. Anyway, but to go back to that, that upsell, you could do a certain percentage of people that sell that, 20% of their packages that are at the VIP level for dog training.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool too. And I actually have talked to a lot of pet sitters now or dog walkers now, where that's an additional service that you can add enrichment to your dog walking service. So don't just go and walk the dog. I mean, walking the dog is awesome. It gets the dog out and all that. But as an additional service you could offer, we're going to take your dog on a walk. We're also going to do some enrichment activities, or we're going to do some canine conditioning activities. We're going to keep your dog flexible and mobile. And it's just not about taking your dog for a walk. It's about holistically managing that dog, for the whole dog's life to make sure it's got flexibility and all that. So you could take, take the climb over to their house and do it. Better yet, sell them the climb so it's there every time.
Right. Yeah. You don't have to flip it over. Yeah.
Great. So yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah. Before we run out of time, Lori, I definitely want to talk to you about what if you've got like your groomers and dog trainers on a commission basis already. How do you determine if you should be doing incentive pay on top of that?
So, I think you want to be smart about how you shape the groomer and the trainer's incentive structure, because, you want to provide them the incentive to do a great job. And most are used to being paid commission. Although I have clients who have trainers and groomers who are hourly, and then they make a bonus on the number of services they provide or whatever. But doing that add-on sale of a bath or a grooming service is, again, I go back to, it is so important for your business and for how people feel when they leave your business. That I think for grooming, I mean, I have recommended in the past, give people $1 a bath. And maybe your groomer isn't doing all of the baths. Maybe you have someone else trained. If you talk to Joe Zuccarello, you have a grooming tech who does your baths. And but it's that important that I don't think, or I know it's not going to hurt you to pay someone an incentive to promote those services, because a true salesperson chases a carrot. They like the competition. Put something in front of them and they're going to go for it. And you can't just expect it to happen just because it's part of their job. Like it's the way that salespeople are wired. And so I believe in still providing some type of incentive. But I think it starts with the way that you pay those people, the groomers and the trainers, so that you're not breaking the bank, and that you're making money off of the services you provide, so that you can afford the marketing and the sales to get the business for those services.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing I see is you really have to understand what it's costing you as the business, including a percentage of your fixed cost attributed to that service, and then making sure that between the salary that person might get or the hourly wage that person might get plus the commission, that there's still something left over that is profit going to the business. And that's where I feel like there's sometimes too much given away in that sense. When you combine both the wages and the commission, sometimes it can be a problem. And I do think
a lot of times it doesn't take a lot. Just something makes people really happy.
So April said, our experience shows that the evening crew gets better sales results than the morning crew because the client is standing there chatting during checkout a little bit more than when they drop off. Any suggestions for making it more fair between the shifts? The multiple winner contest you mentioned is helpful, but anything else?
I mean, that doesn't surprise me because, well, it kind of does though. Things are hectic at check-in and checkout. And I mean, a lot of you know that I'm a big proponent in having the front desk less worried about adding on sales, because if you have this one person or two people, depending on the size of your facility, who are managing that reservation process, it's all set once they get to the front desk, and all your front desk team has to worry about is making that customer happy and making sure that all the details are taken care of. So, if I'm not sure how you would make it more fair with between morning and evening. It sounds like the morning may be a lot more hectic and people are rushing to work. They have more time in the evening because they're finished with work and they're there to pick up their pet. So I would have to think about that one. You kind of stumped me.
Well, I think also if you did the whole team together, like if not one or the other, that would help too.
You could do that.
In my facility, morning, people were much more chatty in the morning. So I do think that's interesting. Although we did have some people that they had nothing to do at the end of the day, so they would just hang out in the lobby. And then I do think but I think a lot of it might be also how much you can get done before they show up to leave you free time, well, quote unquote free time. So if you're not having to, like, you already know what medicine they have or what you need to feed them or what they're, all of that, if all of that is already taken care of, which a lot of times happens if you do a confirmation call, especially for lodging.
Right.
Then there's a little bit more time when they drop off the dog, but it's still, you don't want the total focus to be sales either, because that will come across.
Yeah, that's why I love separating it, because there's the reservation process, which that person sort of acts as a consultant on what they learn about the pet, what's going to be best for your pet. They give them all the information they need. And then once they get to the front desk, it's all about taking care of that customer and ensuring they have an amazing experience in the lobby with you, because that's really what's going to keep them coming back.
Right.
So maybe it's really less about sales for those periods of time and more about the points that you talked about before with.
Exactly. Are you acknowledging and looking them in the eye when they walk in? I mean, I've walked into pet care centers and it's kind of like, hello, I'm here.
Right.
Yeah.
And especially new clients. I feel so sorry for new clients who walk into a pet care center and all these clients are dropping their dogs off, and they do it every day for daycare. And that new client's like, oh, where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? So yeah, the focus for the front desk really has to be on client care.
Yeah. And I do think there's kind of two different pots of money we're talking about throughout this whole session. One is truly the money you're paying based on sales. And so we get X amount of sales, or we upsell a certain amount, or maybe like at the holidays, if you do, a special meal for Thanksgiving, like how many of those do you sell? I think there's those type of commissions. But then I also think talking about just incentives based on performance that aren't necessarily, maybe an aspect of that has to do with sales, but not all of it. And it is really I love that, because I don't think we talk about that at all, really. We just expect people to do their job and we're mad when they don't. But if you look at your budget and you say, most of us do pizza parties, or we'll buy candy or donuts or whatever, like how much of that do you spend, and just take a portion of it and go, now we're going to still reward the team, but the reward is going to not just be because I love you, which is there's definitely opportunity for that, but also just to say, you guys are doing an awesome job and here's how I can tell. So I love that's an idea as well, to just get better performance and better teamwork with your whole team too.
Yeah.
So I think making sure you have that distinction as well. So Jen's driving, and I typed a question to her, and then she's driving, so she can't read it. So Jen, what I was telling you was, because Jen had asked a question about trying to figure out pricing for everything. And so Jen, at APDT as well as at PSI is next week, APDT is later in the month. But at both of those, I'm actually doing a presentation on profitable pricing that will walk you step by step in how to figure out your pricing for whatever service you do. So if either of those is something you can attend, then sign up for those. There's a whole bunch of other sessions too, but I'm giving that one. that was what I was telling you, Jen.
That's awesome.
So, all right. Any last comments? If anyone has any last comments, now's your chance to type them in. And Susan and Lori, do you have any last comments?
Well, you mentioned budget, and do you have these numbers in your budget? So next week we're going to do a Facebook Live on budgeting. So come back for that.
Yeah, we are going to get into numbers soon.
Yay. So, and I will, once I have these modules ready that I'm working on, I'll let the dog gurus know, and I'm sure they would be nice enough to share links with you. Absolutely. And because I do have some things that I can share that will make this easier for you all to implement in your businesses, and I would love to help you do that.
Yeah, and I definitely, this is a great, Susan, do you want to talk? I'm going to get the link for the Budgets Made, the free webinar, if you want to talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I will.
Since this week's thing, but we might as well talk about the webinar as well.
True. And Lori, I am a big proponent of implementing more incentive pay plans, but I think what you pointed out is there's really some things with your systems and tracking that you need to have in place. So until your modules are done,
yeah,
you can start working on, thinking about the behavior, because you probably know that, and then think about how you would track it, because
absolutely,
that's probably the biggest obstacle to getting these things implemented. And you can do self-tracking with QC or audits to make sure people are reporting. And I kind of like that. I did that with my bathers. They reported back to me the baths they did. And then I figured their commissions, because it's like, if you want to earn this pay, it should be important to you to track it and turn it into me.
Yeah.
So you can set some of that up and get ready as far as thinking about your behaviors and what your tracking is before that. But yeah, next week we are going to be doing a webinar on budget process and getting a budget in place for your next fiscal year. And we do it in a really easy 5-step process. And so we're going to do a webinar on Tuesday, and then on, I think it's next Thursday, we're going to do a Facebook Live and talk about budgeting too, because what we have found really this year, the members that we've worked with and had budgets, they were able to adjust and make decisions and be prepared to make some tough decisions about their business this year to keep their financials in line as best as they could. So we're big believers in not only creating a budget, but operating from a budget. And there's a lot of benefits to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and this is definitely the time to start looking at budgeting. I will say that Susan does make the budgeting process easy, and she has taught me very well. So
I know Robin was whipping off some of these financial discussions and answers. Did you see she's doing 2 presentations on
exactly pricing? I said the fact that I'm doing 2 presentations on profitable pricing is all Susan's education of me. So, but she does make it very easy. For those that don't know, Susan's background is in, she has a master's in accountancy. It's the little known secret about Susan.
Because I am not your typical bean counter. I'd like
and then Lori is available. I put her website in there earlier at Paramount Success Group. So if you have further questions,
email me at lori@paramountsuccessgroup.com. So
awesome. We always love having you here, Lori. It's been a while, so it's great to get you back.
I appreciate you having me, and this is this. I feel like this is an exciting time for people, because unfortunately we are slower, but use this time to get all of those new processes and goals in place, so that when we do take a turn, you can bust out and you'll be prepared.
Exactly.
That's awaiting.
Well, thank you all for joining us. If you have friends that might be interested, feel free to share this video with them. We will post this video on our YouTube channel as well. And on that YouTube channel, you can find tons and tons of other videos that we've done that are all free. So check that out. And then again, if you're interested in joining our Facebook group, just go to the link I posted earlier in the comments for the Grow Your Facebook page. You can also find that here somewhere on the Dog Gurus page. There's a link to it as well. but I'm not on the dog gurus page right now. I'm in something else. So I can't tell you where, but I know it's there. But anyway, we'd love to have you over there as well. But thanks, Lori, again for joining us.
Thank you for having me. You guys have a happy Friday and a great weekend.
All right. Talk to everyone later.
Bye.
Bye.